Greetings, everyone, and welcome to ACEDS Data Unmasked, streaming live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Mike Quartararo. I am the president of ACEDS. Today, we are going to be joined shortly by John Wilson, Chief Information Security Officer and President of Forensics at Haystack. For those who don't know, Haystack is a professional services company in the e-discovery and information governance and cyber segments of the legal industry. You can learn more about Haystack at HaystackID.com. Haystack is also a valued partner of ACEDS. And as always, we like to showcase for our followers what our partners are doing. So we invited John to join us to discuss what's happening in forensics and in collections, topics I know that are top of mind for the ACEDS community. So let's get into it. John, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Oh, thank you, Mike, for having me here.
And let's start. I want to get into your background a little bit, but let's start with where you are and what you are doing.
So I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, currently attending the College World Series next week. Looking forward to having that fun. I actually brought my mom out and everything, so it's going to be a great adventure.
I can sense the presence of an awning attached to an RV. Do I have that right?
That's correct. Yes, I live in my RV, and wherever I'm parked is home. So
That is
currently, that's Omaha.
awesome. All right, let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about your journey into e-discovery and forensics. What got you into this crazy business?
Yeah, so it was really by accident. I started in the mid 90s doing data recoveries. I was building internet data centers, that sort of thing, and then started getting into, clients calling, hey, my servers failed, the hard drive crashed. Can you, recover the data? And so after several iterations of sending it out to other people and, being mildly or moderately successful, they recovered some stuff. I was fairly technical, and a programmer was kind of my trade at the time. And so I said, well, let me take a look at it. Let me try to see what I can do. And lo and behold, I recovered a lot more data than the people we paid, $6,000 in 1995 money to recover. And it was like, well, let's see what else I can do. And started doing it. And then the next thing was, hey, somebody got into my server and did something. Can you come to court and say why you think it was this person and what they did and why they did it and how they did it? And next thing move into the mid 2000s. Hey, you're an expert witness, right? And if that's what you want to call me, happy to be that. Long as you pay the bills for the invoices I give you, I don't really care what you call me. And if you want me to go to court more, that's great too. And so that just continued to proliferate until, people were like, hey, you're a digital forensics expert. This is what you've been doing. And, you've already testified in dozens and dozens of cases. And here we are, 28 years later and still doing it. Love what I do. I've done it all over the world. 39 countries that I can say that I went to, plus all the 50 states of the U.S. and territories. So.
And your background's fairly diverse, from what I learned in preparation. You served in the Navy and the Army. Thank you for serving. Thank you for serving, by the way.
Absolutely.
And you've had various roles across the technology industry. How did your experience in the service shape your approach to what you're doing today?
Well, yeah, so the service is really important in my background because you kind of learn that methodical, systematic approach to everything. You learn you can learn some of that in school, but it's more theory. In the military, it's, this is the way you do it. Here's the steps you follow. Here's how you have a successful outcome. And you learn that kind of regiment. And I think it also really lends to my analytical mind of, hey, how do I solve this problem? And I typically, when a client comes to me with a problem, I look at it from the back end. What are you trying to accomplish? Because clients want to come to you and they're like, hey, we need to accomplish X. We want you to make a forensic image. We want you to do this and this and this. Like, well, that's great. I understand all of that. I can do all of that, but I really need to understand, what are you trying to accomplish in the end here? What is the end goal? Because then I can tell you, is this really the right solution, the right path? And that's really comes from my military background of you're out there, you're in charge of people, and you've got to find a solution to the problem, make sure that solution meets everybody's needs, protects everyone, accomplishes the goals, and delivers successfully.
Yeah. I'm reminded of, early in my days in this business, and I've been doing it about 25 years. The default decision many years ago was always, a bit for bit image of an entire machine, or even a server. And it's so fascinating to have watched that evolve over time, where now we look at it and say, let's just collect what we actually need. Let's not take a full image if we don't need a full image. So it's been interesting to watch. Let me ask you this. Forensics tends to be this, sort of highly technical, not in the wheelhouse of your average e-discovery professional. And the typical e-discovery professional is relying on individuals like you to collect ESI. And I don't sense that the tools have changed a lot, but maybe I'm missing something there. Are there any new developments in collection and forensics that our listeners should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There are some, newer developments. I think everybody has felt the change. COVID changed the world, and so there's a lot more remote activity. So it's still kind of the same tools, but leveraged in a way that you can use them remotely. You can do a lot of things remotely, and it doesn't work for every situation. But again, that's where what I talk about is I need to understand what your end goal is, and then I can help the team deliver the solution that's going to meet that need. But I mean, further to your question, what's changed? So data volumes have obviously changed. I mean, in 2005, 2010, even 2015, it was the best approach was usually, hey, we're going to collect all the data, because then we have that defensible bit for bit full preservation.
Right.
And storage was cheap, so it was really, how much time is it going to take it to accomplishment? There wasn't a big difference in the speed of the hard drives that actually stored the data. And so doing a targeted collecting just a smaller portion of the drive versus the full size of the drive wasn't radically different. Leap forward into 2023, and you can go out to a laptop, and it's got some like Apple laptops, or even some Windows laptops may have 8 terabytes of storage on it. Radically different than talking about 128 gig or 256 gig or even 500 gig. 8 terabytes. So you have to, that's where the tools have really evolved, is you do have to start looking at that surgical approach. And now, again, it depends on your case need. If you're looking at a criminal investigation, you're looking at, malfeasance, a bad actor in the organization, you need that full image, because you still need to do the analysis of the information about their activities and not just the information on disk. So you need to get into the registry in a Windows system, or into the logs in the Mac system, and you need to start to being able to digest all of that. Now, there has been a lot of advancements as far as some of the tools more recently are getting much better at identifying, hey, here's the artifacts you really need to look at. We can capture that pretty quickly without having to capture the full hard disk. And again, talking about the remote agents, so now you can suddenly deploy an agent out to the endpoint, whether it's a Mac or Windows computer or Linux box, whatever it may be. You deploy that agent out, and you can start pulling back all of that data across the wire without having to be sitting in front of the machine, all the way up to and including a full bit for bit image if that's what you really need. But you have to really look at bandwidth constraints and all that sort of stuff.
You're pulling that over the wire, so you have to be cognizant of that, right?
Right. Yeah. Again, that's why we always talk about what's the end goal? What are we trying to accomplish here? Are you just needing the 5 contracts that the individual looked at, or do we need to understand, did this person exfiltrate data? Did this person drop a payload in the organization? Then we need to start looking at other areas of the computer and more information. And so you really have to figure out, what's the end goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And then you start backing your way into it with that technology. But again, I wouldn't say that the technology is terribly different. I think a lot of it is really the newer stuff is more about how to do it in a wider variety of circumstances, because you no longer can just say, hey, I got to collect 80 people at this company that are involved in litigation, so I'm going to go to Poughkeepsie and sit in the office and collect 80 computers, because those 80 people are all of a sudden all over the country, or all over the world. And it's certainly not practical to fly to each location for 1 or 2 individuals. So you have to look at you leveraging that technology to complete those things in a much more remote sense, as well as making sure you're capturing the data you need, but only the data you need, because privacy and security starts playing into all of that.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I can't just go collect Mike's entire hard drive, because I have to deal with the privacy regulations in the state he's in, or in the country he's in, or the country he's from. And so I have to really be much more focused and only get the data that meets the requirements of the case and meets the purpose and use that's declared.
Yeah, it's so important to understand the needs of your case. The worst collection projects I've ever been involved in were like these dispersed sales teams all over the place. Everybody's got a laptop, a phone, a tablet, and they're all in different cities all over the place. It's just becomes a logistical nightmare to coordinate. So that's cool. I get it on an industry basis. The tools haven't changed much, but where the processes have changed a bit. What about from the sort of the client side? You've worked with large financial institutions, big law firms, Fortune 100 companies. How have their needs changed? What are some of their challenges, and how have they evolved over time in terms of e-discovery and collection?
Yeah, so really ties right into what we were just talking about. So the company's needs are, they need the data that they need, and only the data they need. Data volumes, again, have really grown, and as we all know, in the e-discovery business, the top of the pyramid, that review portion, is the most expensive. And so the more data you're streaming up to there, the more expense you have there. That's one concern for the corporations, the organizations. But you also have to deal with, now I've got privacy concerns, so I can't collect the personal information for Mike that might be on the system, even though I have an acceptable use policy that says, hey, all my data on this computer belongs to the company. Regulatory wise, or government body wise, that's not necessarily the case. You have personal information that's stored on there just by the nature of using the device. All of a sudden, if I can identify your health information, if I can identify any of your PII, those information categories,
Mm-hmm.
um, I have to not collect that, because otherwise I'm in violation of GDPR, or Virginia privacy, or California privacy, or
Yeah.
whatever states you want to, or governments you want to call out in it. And that has significant impact on the corporations. So now they do have to have that surgical approach. And then again, COVID changed everything. So it used to be really easy. We, hey, okay, tell the whole company we're coming in. We're going to do it on shifts, and everybody's going to bring in their computers, their phones, and we're going to do the forensic imaging. You can't do that anymore. They're not all there. They're everywhere. So,
What would you say, John, is the most challenging case you've worked on? Can you give an example? People love stories. I'm trying to
well,
get to.
yeah, I mean, so probably most challenging. Well, kind of 2 cases that were most challenging. One case was a major financial institution. We had to collect 8,700 endpoints
Oof.
um, across the world, multiple locations, and coordination, scheduling, data volumes, all of it was a real problem because, when you're talking about doing, thousands of computers, that is a lot of data.
Yeah.
And generally your forensics tools only work to collect to external storage. Sometimes you can collect to a NAS or some other network storage, but you also run into bandwidth issues, IOPS, how
Mm.
many files are there, and all those files having to go across that internet connection can really slow down the imaging process, and it's kind of this cascading fail. So uh, just from a sheer volume and coordination, we had to have our teams all over the country. And then there was beyond, the sheer volume of 8,700 people, there was, a certain first class of people that had to all be collected simultaneously because they were unaware of the investigation and the matter going on, and you didn't want to tip your hat from one party to another. So, we had 12 locations across the world that had to be all set and started at the exact same time. That's, a logistical challenge that took us probably a month just to coordinate getting
Yeah,
it started and run.
I could imagine. Wow.
Uh, the other one was one of my Senate investigations that I participated in, and that was more complicated only because it was involving military action, and it was
Mm.
involving not so much a permission-based scenario, and you had to be very focused, very targeted, but you also had to be very quick. You had a very narrow window. And, when we talk to clients about doing this stuff, we talk about, hey, one hard drive, X size, depending on a lot of other factors, could, be an hour, could be 2 hours, could be 4 hours. There's a pretty wide window. And when you're talking about a Senate investigation and a military involvement, you've got 2 hours. I
Yeah.
don't care what happens, it's got to be done. You've got 2 hours. And that made that project quite challenging, just dealing with the logistics of that, and dealing with the logistics of, getting to the location, getting it running, getting it done, figuring out what we're going to do in scenarios where we couldn't complete the specific task in the time that we had allowed, and figuring out what our alternatives were, alternative workflows, alternative methods of accomplishing the same goals.
And I imagine there was probably, given the stakeholders, there was probably a need for high level government clearance, top notch security, protecting that information, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there was security clearances involved. There was security teams involved, ensuring that a site was secure. Whereas when we went in, there was quite a large number of security factors around ensuring that the data we were seeing was only seen by the people that had the security clearances to see it. And the activities were only done by the people that had the security clearances to do it, and those varied across multiple people.
Sure.
You had people that could only do portion A and people that could only do portion B, and again, just really the overwhelming tone here is logistics is usually the hardest burden in completing these larger engagements.
Got it. So let me shift gears really quick. AI is all the rage, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these tools are sort of cropping up and popping up, and there's all kinds of hysteria around them. Do you see any ways in which AI is changing or will change the world of forensics and collections?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for years I've been a proponent of, we use machine learning or something. So like when we have a collection, say there's 100 custodians at a company, the key is to get to the important data as quickly as possible. So we'll take a first, hey, here's the first 4 people. We know they're definite actors, they're definite involved, have strong ties to the activity that's
Mm-hmm.
involved in this litigation or investigation, whatever it may be. And so we'll take those first 4 and process them right on site. Start looking at heat lists, heat maps of, hey, who are they communicating with?
Mm.
Where are their documents stored, to help us, be much more focused. And okay, now we know tier 2, or all the people that are in that first ring around them, they're talking to those people a lot. There's a few fringe conversations here and there. That's a second or third or fourth tier. But the people that are in that inner circle right around them, that's the people we need to go hit next. And so using that, we've been using that machine learning to be much more intelligent about the collections. Now, further involvement as we start moving down the rabbit hole, you start getting into the AI, is now the AI can be trained to understand apples means oranges in this organization, and you can start doing a lot more things to, now I'm not just focused on that heat ring of people they're talking to, but now it's the people and the subjects, and maybe the tone of those conversations, and you
That
can start getting much more intelligent at finding the data that you want to collect. And does it mean that you don't have to collect all 100 people? Again, we got to figure that out. I have to understand the end goal and the case. But what it does mean is you can get to that 80% of the data in that 20% of time in that first span, to really start being much more effective. And then as you're adding data beyond that, it's much more trickle. It's much less impactful. You're seeing that picture much earlier, which then lends right into the whole processing and the using analytics in the review database and the tar, or the various learning models.
mm.
Now all of a sudden you have a much hotter data set because you've collected that focused data first, and you're able to make much more effective use of that AI and of that machine learning at that level as well. So it's kind of this, you know, uh, magnifying effect. It's not, hey, it's not 1 + 1, it's 1 times 2 and times 4 and times 8. And so you're starting to get that multiplier as you delve deeper and deeper.
Yeah, it's all about telling the story at the end of the day. Whoever gets to the evidence quicker and understands the context is likely got an advantage. So I've always looked at it that way. Um, we're almost out of time here, but I wanted to. There's probably someone out there who's interested in starting a career in forensics, particularly as it relates to e-discovery, or maybe not. But what are some of the skills? What are the experiences? What do you believe are the most valuable things someone interested in this industry could undertake to get started, or if they're in it, what they could do to enhance?
Yeah. So, again, military service is great for learning that methodical process. There's a lot of great college programs out there now. I mean, none of this existed. It wasn't even called digital forensics when I started. It was, hey, I found data on the hard drive. um, but, there's some great programs out there. But the
Data
key,
jockeys. We used to call them data jockeys.
yeah, exactly. But the key, I would say, that most people miss is, if you're out there getting your degree in it, or you're really wanting to focus in this area, is get your hands involved, do an internship, because there, forensics isn't just one thing. There is multiple aspects to it. Like if you're doing forensics and e-discovery versus forensics in a cybersecurity or cyber incident, which is another area that we have a lot of focus on. There's quite a bit of differences, and then there's a lot of specialties through that. You're looking at hard disk data, or you're looking at video, recovering video from DVRs, or you're looking at, hey, deep fakes. I need to be able to detect if a digital piece of evidence has been altered in a material way. A lot of those things. So, find that specialty, and that's where those internships and getting involved in the industry, even if it's an entry level job, is going to give you a sense of, hey, this is where I want to go. This is where I want to be. Um, Great read if you really want to understand the cyber mindset, which is beneficial for anybody in the forensics industry wanting to do forensics, whether it's e-discovery or cyber, or whatever general area around the digital forensics. um, is Battlefield by H. Masters,
Mm.
and it's a great book, and really provides some great information. It gets you into the psychology of it. It gets you into understanding how things occur, why things occur, around digital espionage and hacking and all that sort of stuff. So really a great read.
Awesome. All right, we're almost out of time. I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to talk about their company. Anything new, anything interesting happening at Haystack that you want to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, I mean, so Haystack. Obviously, we talk about AI. We have our new Review Right AI, which does an amazing job at helping organizations find the best solution, the best people for their reviews. We use a lot of AI in our breach cyber response business. Another new, really focused area. I think you actually spoke with Mike Sarlo and Anya fairly recently. Very intriguing stuff. Obviously, in the forensics world, we're doing targeted mobile devices and a remote method. So I think that's something that's really important and new for people to understand, is that targeted mobile is kind of a thing you can do now. But again, you have to figure out, is it the right solution for your case? We get a lot of clients that call up. We saw your press release about targeted mobile collections. We want to do that. And it's like, well, yeah, that's great, but what's your use case? What are you actually trying to accomplish? I don't know if it meets your needs, because when you're doing targeted, you're only getting certain bits of the information. Some things you're not getting, and that may or may not meet the requirements of a case or a particular scenario. And so it really is a consulting engagement to understand that. But really, our advancements in our mobile collections, the ability to do unlocks, ability to do targeted remote collections, I think is probably our hotbed area. Just really driving the edge of what digital forensics can be.
Awesome. What's the best way for folks to get in touch if they need something from you?
Yeah, so obviously HaystackID.com. My email address is jwilson@HaystackID.com. Happy to talk to anybody, have a conversation, anything I can do to help. This is what I breathe. This is what I love. I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm happy to do it. I love doing it. Wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
It's funny. I've never met anybody who does what you do who didn't like it.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Every job's new, every job's different, but you got to have that core base of the methodologies, the defensible practices, all that sort of stuff. So it's been great.
The difference between a career and having a job, right?
That's it.
This has been great, John. Thanks so much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you're interested in our short form video interviews, you can find Data Unmasked and We Are ACEDS live streams on your LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook feeds, or check out the ACEDS YouTube channel where you can watch all our previous interviews. Thank you, John, for joining us. Thank you, Haystack. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. Have a great day and be kind to one another.
Thank you very much, Mike. It was great.